I used to think something dramatic had to happen for life to change. A breakdown, a wake-up call, some kind of disaster that would force me to move. But nothing like that ever came. Instead, my life got stuck in a quieter way. Every week felt the same. I woke up tired even after sleeping. I reached for my phone before my feet touched the floor. I scrolled through other people's lives while mine stayed exactly where it was, somewhere between wanting more and doing nothing about it. I told myself I would change. I told myself next week would be different. I told myself I just needed more time. And then the day ended. Again, there was no single moment I could point to and say, that is when everything went wrong. There was just a slow heaviness, a feeling that I was watching my own life from the outside, nodding along, pretending this was fine. I was not miserable, and that was part of the problem. Misery demands action. Comfortable dissatisfaction does not. I went through the motions. I worked. I ate. I rested in ways that never actually rested me. At night, I made quiet promises to myself. Tomorrow, I would wake up earlier. Tomorrow, I would be more focused. Tomorrow, I would finally start doing the thing I kept saying mattered to me. Tomorrow kept moving. I did not feel lazy. I felt frozen. And the strangest part was that I knew better. I knew nothing would change if I kept repeating the same choices. I had heard that truth before. Everyone has. It sounds simple, almost obvious. But knowing something and accepting it are not the same thing. Deep down, I was waiting for motivation to arrive first. I was waiting to feel ready. I was waiting for the moment when change would feel less uncomfortable than staying the same. That moment never came. What did come was a quiet realization I could no longer ignore. If I changed nothing, nothing was ever going to change. Not my focus, not my confidence, not my habits, not my life. Time was moving whether I moved or not. And I was still waiting, still saying one day, still telling myself I would start when things felt easier, calmer, more stable. But maybe one day was just a softer way of saying never. That thought sat with me longer than I expected. It did not scare me. It did not push me. It simply stayed, like a truth I could not scroll past. I did not need a perfect plan. I did not need a new identity. I did not need to impress anyone. I needed honesty. Honesty about why I was holding back. Honesty about what I was afraid of. Honesty about the fact that staying stuck felt safer than trying and failing. And once I admitted that to myself, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to make me wonder if the smallest step forward might be enough to break the pattern. Because maybe change did not start with confidence. Maybe it started with one quiet decision to stop waiting. And that question led me to something even harder to face. Why, even when I said I wanted change, was I still resisting it? For a long time, I told myself I was stuck because I was tired, too busy, too distracted, too overwhelmed. That explanation felt kind. It felt reasonable. It gave me something to blame without forcing me to look too closely at myself. But one quiet evening, after another day that looked exactly like the one before it, I realized something uncomfortable. I was not resisting change because I could not handle it. I was resisting change because staying the same felt safer. Even when I was unhappy, at least I knew what to expect. Familiar discomfort has a strange comfort to it. You know where it hurts. You know how bad it will get. There are no surprises, no risks, no moments where you have to face the possibility that you might try your best and still fall short. Change, on the other hand, asks for energy before it gives anything back. It asks you to wake up earlier before you feel better. It asks you to practice before you feel confident. It asks you to start while you still feel unsure. That cost felt heavy to me. I noticed it in the smallest moments. I would set my alarm with good intentions, telling myself tomorrow would be different. But when morning came, my hand moved on its own. Snooze. Again. My body did not respond to hope. It responded to habit. And that was the problem. Hope alone does not create change. Habit does. My brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was protecting me from the unknown by pulling me back toward what felt familiar. Even if familiar meant dull, unfulfilled, and quietly disappointing. I used to think resistance meant I was weak. Now I see it differently. Resistance meant I was afraid of trying and not succeeding, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of starting something and not finishing it, afraid that if I gave my effort honestly, I would discover that I was not as capable as I wanted to believe. So instead of risking failure, I chose delay. I told myself I would start tomorrow. I told myself I needed more information. I told myself I was not in the right headspace. Those phrases sounded logical, but they were just softer versions of the same fear. What if I try and nothing changes? That question haunted me, but there was another question hiding underneath it, one I avoided asking for a long time. What if I never try and nothing ever changes? That one hit harder because not trying was not neutral. It was a decision, a quiet one but a powerful one. Every day I stayed the same. I was also choosing to stay away from the life I said I wanted. I started to notice how often I distracted myself when change felt close. The moment I thought about doing something uncomfortable, I reached for my phone. I scrolled. I snacked. I filled my time with noise so I would not have to sit with the feeling that I was avoiding something important. Avoidance felt like relief in the moment, but later it always turned into guilt, and guilt is heavy. The truth I had to face was this: avoiding change did not protect my peace. It postponed my growth. I had spent so much time waiting for the fear to disappear before acting, but fear does not leave first. It quiets down after you move. No one had ever told me that clearly. I always assumed confident people felt ready before they began. But when I looked closely, I realized most of them started while feeling unsure. They did not wait for certainty. They built it slowly through action. I also realized something else that softened the way I talked to myself. This was not about blame. I was not behind. I was not broken. I was not failing at life. I was standing at the edge of a new chapter without knowing how to step into it. That mattered, because when you stop seeing yourself as a problem, change stops feeling like punishment. It starts to feel like possibility. I did not need to change everything. That idea alone was exhausting. I just needed to say yes to one small thing instead of no to everything. One small yes, that was all. Not a full routine, not a dramatic promise, not a version of myself I could not sustain, just one decision that broke the pattern, even slightly. That was the moment I understood something important. Change does not begin when fear disappears. It begins when you move anyway. And once I accepted that, the question was no longer why change felt hard. The real question became this: if I stopped waiting for the perfect moment, what was the smallest shift I could make right now? I used to believe that change had to announce itself. A bold decision, a dramatic reset, a clear moment where everything finally clicked. If it did not feel big, I assumed it did not count. That belief kept me stuck longer than I want to admit. Because when change feels huge, it feels heavy. And when it feels heavy, it is easy to postpone it. I told myself I would start when I had more time, more energy, more clarity. I waited for the version of myself who would suddenly feel ready. That version never showed up. What did show up was exhaustion from waiting. The shift started the day I stopped asking, what should I change? And started asking, what is the smallest thing I can do right now without arguing with myself? That question changed everything. I did not redesign my life. I did not set ambitious goals. I did not promise consistency. I chose something almost embarrassingly small. 5 minutes. That was it. I set a timer for 5 minutes to listen to English. No notes, no pressure, no expectation that it would lead anywhere. I told myself I could stop the moment the timer ended. And I did. Nothing magical happened that first day. I did not feel smarter. I did not feel motivated. But something subtle shifted. I had started. The next day I did it again. 5 minutes. Same rules. Same lack of drama. Some days I wanted to stop early. Some days I stayed a little longer. But I never forced it. That mattered. Because forcing myself had always triggered resistance. This time, I was choosing something small enough that my fear did not feel threatened. What surprised me most was not the habit itself, but how it changed the way I saw myself. I stopped telling myself I was someone who never had time. I became someone who could make time, even briefly. That identity shift was quiet, but it was powerful. People talk about motivation as if it appears first. In my experience, motivation followed movement, not the other way around. Action created evidence. Evidence built trust. Trust made it easier to show up again. Slowly, 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Not because I pushed harder, but because the habit no longer felt foreign. It felt normal. That was when I understood something I had heard many times but never truly absorbed. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. Goals live in your head. Habits live in your body. I started noticing small shifts everywhere. Choosing water instead of soda without making it a rule. Turning my phone off 10 minutes earlier instead of promising a perfect bedtime routine. Writing down one new word instead of planning a full study session I would avoid. These were not impressive choices. No one would applaud them. No one would even notice. But my future noticed. Progress stopped feeling like pressure and started feeling like direction. I also learned something important about consistency. Consistency does not mean doing everything right. It means returning after you drift. It means choosing again without turning mistakes into reasons to quit. Some days I skipped my 5 minutes. Some days I felt tired and distracted. In the past, that would have been enough for me to give up completely. This time, I let those days exist without judgment. Progress is not about perfection. It is about pattern. Every small choice pointed me slightly in a new direction, and over time, those directions added up. I stopped waiting to feel confident before acting. I let action teach me confidence instead. That lesson stayed with me. Change did not arrive as a dramatic moment. It arrived as a series of quiet decisions that slowly rewired how I moved through my days. And just when I started to feel proud of that progress, I almost lost it because I fell into an old trap that had stopped me before. I started wanting it to look perfect. Perfection almost pulled me back into the same place I had worked so hard to leave. It did not arrive loudly. It came disguised as discipline, as high standards, as the voice that said, if you are going to do this, do it properly. That voice sounded reasonable, responsible even, but I had heard it before. Every time I waited until I felt ready, every time I rewrote the same plan instead of starting, every time I told myself I would speak English when I could speak it well. Perfection had always promised protection. If I waited until I was ready, I would not embarrass myself. If I waited until I was good, I would not fail publicly. If I waited until everything was aligned, no one could judge me. So I hesitated again. I noticed it when I caught myself replaying the same sentence in my head instead of saying it out loud. I noticed it when I studied longer but avoided using what I had learned. I noticed it when 5 minutes suddenly felt like it was not enough anymore, and instead of increasing gently, I stopped altogether. That was the pattern, all or nothing, perfect or pointless, and it nearly cost me the habit I had built. One evening, I realized I had not done my small practice in days. Not because I was busy, but because I felt disappointed with myself. I told myself I had ruined the streak, that if I could not do it properly, there was no point in doing it at all. That thought felt heavy. Then another one followed, quieter but clear. Since when did improvement require perfection? I sat with that question longer than I expected. I thought about every skill I admired in others, every fluent speaker, every disciplined person. None of them started polished. None of them moved forward without sounding awkward or making mistakes. They were not perfect. They were persistent. Progress is not clean. It does not look good from the inside. It feels uneven. Some days it feels invisible, but it is still progress. The next time I practiced, I spoke out loud, even though my voice felt uncertain. I made grammar mistakes. I paused too long. I forgot words I knew. And nothing terrible happened. No one laughed. No doors closed. No disaster followed. What did happen was smaller, but more important. I showed up. That single act softened something in me. I stopped treating mistakes as evidence that I was failing. I started seeing them as proof that I was trying. There is a difference. Perfection demands performance. Progress asks for presence. I began to measure my days differently. Not by how flawless they looked, but by whether I acted with honesty. Did I try even when I felt tired? Did I continue even when my effort felt messy? Some days my best was small. Some days my energy was low. But I learned to let those days exist without turning them into a verdict on my character. Done became better than perfect. Consistency beat intensity. I realized that confidence was not something I needed before starting. Confidence was something I earned by returning again and again imperfectly. That realization reached beyond learning. It touched everything. I stopped waiting to become a different person before acting. I allowed myself to grow slowly in public with mistakes. Life was not asking me to impress it. It was asking me to participate. And once I let go of the need to get everything right, I felt lighter, more willing, more open. I was no longer fighting myself. I was learning to move with myself. That was when change stopped feeling like a burden and started feeling like a conversation. One small choice at a time, one imperfect step after another. And with that shift, I arrived at something unexpected, peace. Not the kind that comes from having everything figured out, but the kind that comes from knowing I was finally moving. Which brings me to where I am now, right here, ready to begin again gently. I used to believe that change would arrive with noise, a sudden burst of energy, a clear sign, a moment where I would finally feel ready. But standing here now, I see how wrong that was. Change did not knock down my door. It did not interrupt my life. It waited patiently in the background, asking only one question. What are you willing to do today? Not tomorrow, not next month, not when things calm down. Today, that question no longer scares me. I understand now that my life was never meant to be fixed all at once. It was meant to be shaped slowly through small and often invisible choices. The kind no one applauds. The kind that do not look impressive from the outside. One deep breath before reacting. One kind sentence after a mistake. One page read, one sentence spoken out loud, one small step taken instead of staying still. Those moments build quietly. They stack. They carry more power than any dramatic promise ever could. I also stopped telling myself I was behind. Behind whom? On whose timeline? Life does not move in straight lines. Growth does not happen on schedule. I was not late. I was learning. And learning takes time. There were days when I felt doubt creep back in. Days when old habits tried to pull me toward the familiar. But now I recognize those moments for what they are. Not failures, but invitations to choose again. Every day offers that choice. Stay where you are because it feels safe. Or move slightly forward, even if your voice shakes. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sounds like, I deserve better than staying stuck. That whisper changed everything for me. I no longer wait for perfect conditions. I no longer ask myself if I'm motivated enough. I ask myself something simpler and kinder. What is one small thing I can do right now? That question keeps me moving. If you are listening to this and something in your chest feels tight, I want you to know this. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not failing at life. You are human. And being human means change feels uncomfortable. It means growth often feels slow. It means you will doubt yourself even when you are moving in the right direction. That is okay. Nothing blooms overnight. Every flower starts in the dark, pushing quietly through the soil. No applause, no certainty, just movement. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to impress the world. You do not need to have everything figured out. You just need honesty and a little bit of courage. So take a breath with me, in through your nose, out through your mouth, and ask yourself gently, without pressure, what is one small change I am ready to make today? Do not overthink it. If it feels tiny, that is perfect. Small is how everything meaningful begins. No more waiting for the right moment. No more perfect timing. Just one honest step forward. You have got this. And I am right here with you every time you choose to begin again.